Let's talk to Douglas Herbert about all of this, our foreign affairs commentator. And Doug, look, at the beginning of the soundbite we played there, Hegseth was explicit. The United States does not see Ukraine's membership of NATO as part of any peace plan. But for Volodymyr Zelensky, that's been a key demand for a really long time. So where does the Ukrainian leader go from here? How does he deal with that?
He doesn't really know. He's trying to figure it out. He has a few ideas. Without the security guarantees, it's game over. This is, I can't really stress enough how much of a massive shift, Nadia, this is in U.S. Policy towards Ukraine. Under the Biden administration, there was sort of almost it was talked of as in terms of a moral and geopolitical imperative to help Ukraine. The U.S. is now, right now, the America First foreign policy really means concentrating on the homeland, as they call it, and also concentrating on what they see as their biggest competitor, China, right now, the Asia-Pacific region. Europe now is left to the Europeans. What can Zelensky do, right? Because he was not ready, and he still is not prepared to go speak to Putin on terms where he has no guarantees. He needs guarantees, at least from his standpoint and the standpoint of millions of Ukrainians, that if he starts to talk peace with Putin, that Putin won't have a free pass 2-3 years down the road to just reinvade again and start all over. Let's remember that, in 2022, before this war started, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, there was a mechanism in place to observe what was supposed to be a ceasefire from the first invasion, before the full-scale one. And it really broke down. It just did not work right now, which is why security guarantees are the holy grail for the Ukrainians. No peace talks are worth, the paper you write them on if you don't have something that ensures that it's not all going to happen again. You just press rewind and we have the same scenario again. Putin waits a couple of years and goes for Kiev again. So what does he do? He probably plays to Donald Trump a little bit, and what we all say are Donald Trump's zest for deals and transactional nature. Donald Trump clearly has his eyes on Ukraine's rare earths, a lot of those minerals, lithuanium, uranium, titanium, even oil and gas. He'd love to get a little bit. So maybe Zelensky, looking at that, his zest for deal making, is ready to do deals with Trump. We'll give you first dibs on developing our natural resources, of which there's a lot and a lot that you can use right now. In return, could we please have your continued support? Because without you, we can't do anything.
And look, if the United States, Doug, does opt out, could we see a bigger role then from Europe to help ensure that Russia doesn't theoretically reinvade Ukraine again in the future?
Well, look, we just heard Pete Hegseth, right, the U.S. Defense Secretary. I'm still getting used to that title, Nadia. He was a Fox presenter not too long ago. But we just heard him basically talk about the fact the Europeans have to right now take on the burden for Ukraine, because America's not going to be there to do it. It doesn't mean it's going to totally abandon Ukraine, but Europeans have to step up to the plate. So we're in a situation right now. Zelensky himself said in an interview in the past couple of days, no, the Europeans can't do it. You need the Americans, basically. Without the Americans, the Europeans, for all their goodwill, all their good intentions, they don't have the forces, they don't have the weapons. It's estimated, Zelensky himself estimates that if you're going to have boots on the ground, right, and this assumes Europeans could actually agree on that, it would take about 150,000, a multinational force of 150,000 to 200,000. Now let's see, what do you think Europe could right now constitute, actually put together, even if it had the political will to do so? Maybe 30, 40, 50,000 troops? From Zelensky's point of view, there is nothing near the range of troop mass that you would need on the European side to be able to deter Vladimir Putin from going it again. So the question is, can the Europeans step up to the plate? Well, they have no choice. The U.S. is telling them they have to. They have to spend 5% of their defense budgets on NATO. That's the new target. Will whatever they do, be able to deter Vladimir Putin? No. And that is Zelensky's view, not my own. He himself saying it. So when I say he's between a rock and a hard place, he has no choice right now but to play to Trump, hope for the best, roll the dice, and hope that Trump's transactional nature can somehow pay off for Ukraine in terms of a peace deal that actually works for the Ukrainians.
And just a final thought then, Doug, how has the Kremlin been reacting? How might it react?
Putin's laughing all the way to the bank or the battlefield, if it might be. It continues to make steady gains in the eastern Donbass region. Manpower and arms are on his side. He sees himself as having an ally in the White House. Even if, sure, Trump is unpredictable and he's not hardwired to Vladimir Putin, he clearly sees this new administration as someone who is much more empathetic and friendlier to Russia's views. And an administration who, if push came to shove, might actually somehow end up forcing Ukraine into peace talks that amount to a capitulation to Putin because there won't be those security guarantees we were talking about. So Putin right now is not in a very tough position. I think he's watching this, he's relishing it, and he knows, I think he suspects that somehow it's going to work in his favor in the end.
All right, Douglas Herbert, thanks very much indeed for your analysis.